You're listening to Pro Talk Wrestling with NateFNGreat. Hey guys, this is NateFNGreat, and this is a late edition of Pro Talk Wrestling. I've had such a crazy week, you guys, all stemming from ACW WaterCity WrestlingCon this past weekend with the job, with everything that's been going on. It's just been absolutely insane. So I got quite a bit that I'm going to want to talk about. Now, I would be talking about Raw, SmackDown, everything like that, but I am going to say this fact that all of that's going to be taken care of and really mentioned on the podcast known as the King of the Rings podcast. I was a special guest on there this past week. That was also one of the things that kind of threw me off a little bit. I would have probably had a little more time to talk about Raw and SmackDown, but I was really focused and I had a lot of fun with King Ricky and with Willie T. Thank you guys so much for having me on, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think about the Kings of the Rings podcast show that I was a part of. And be sure to also give these guys a follow. Check them out. They are King of the Ring podcast. A lot of King Ricky's stuff is at Ambassador Biggs. And Will is, of course, Will Tarashaw. So be sure to check them out. Absolutely awesome. So, instead, I thought, well, I was originally going to do this on Wednesday, but because I had to do the recording for the Kings of the Rings podcast, I figure I might as well do it today instead. And that's going through a full-fledged review of ACW WaterCity WrestlingCon. I've kind of had everything just sink in, everything kind of just go into my memory bank and try to remember as much as I could about this event. It was a very fun-filled deal. We sponsored the event. We got to sponsor a matchup, which I honestly think was one of the best things that could have happened. I almost teared up because I was not expecting everything to happen like it did. I loved the fact that we got a banner out of this. It's going to definitely be shown on many, game changer sponsorships when we hit any place around. I know that one of the next sponsorships that I am planning right now is going to be LinkCon for September. I'm not setting it in stone, but I'm still in talks with the man himself, Mr. Joshua Turbo. A lot of people know him better as Joshua Yeager from the Pro Wrestling Off Topic podcast, although I think he's doing some other things right now, so might be something else going on. But yeah, honestly, ACW WaterCity WrestlingCon was really cool. I loved the fact that we were able to just, talk on the air. I was able to talk with some, great fans, got to meet up with so many great people. Originally, I was hoping to do a 2-hour show, but that didn't happen, and honestly, I think that was the better idea because I got the chance to talk to so many other people, got the chance to take some pictures with fans, with some of the great wrestlers of ACW, as well as people who were guests in that event. I mean, Francine and Shane Douglas, who are absolutely awesome. I almost got caned in the head by Shane Douglas. It would have been kind of one of those things I think I wish I would have had on tape if that were to happen. But at the same time, it's really still cool to get the chance to talk to Shane Douglas. Francine, we actually got to meet at WrestleCon in New York, and she was just as cool now as she was back then. It's just awesome to talk to them. Johnny Impact, Johnny Mundo, now known as Johnny Oshkosh, and I'll explain why a little later on when I get into the review. He was definitely very down to earth, very cool. Definitely one of those guys that I just absolutely enjoyed, watching. He's such an underrated talent, and I think WWE definitely missed an opportunity to pull the trigger with him and make him a world champion. But now he's a world champion everywhere else, so he's being one of those stars that a lot of people are definitely getting behind. So it's really cool to see that you don't have to be in WWE to be a success and to make a name for yourself. That is indeed what Johnny Impact is all about. And one of the other people that I got the chance to talk to was Noelle Foley. I always loved the chance to talk with her. It was actually our third time meeting each other in this last, oh my gosh, in a matter of a year. That's insane, because we met at StarCast in person for the first time. Then we met at WrestleCon in New York, and then we met at WaterCity WrestlingCon this past weekend. So it was really cool to talk to her, get a chance to just, chat and be able to, catch up a little bit. She is just the most genuine sweetheart you will ever meet. And I love the fact that, we get to talk and we get to kind of, just mess around, stuff like that. It's really awesome. And I even got a chance to, mess around with Frank the Clown. I'll definitely talk about that when we go into, the intermission deal. So let's actually talk about the event of WaterCity WrestlingCon. So, it actually kicked off with one of their special guests, Mick Foley. Foley came out and he started talking about how it was great to be back in Wisconsin again, about how it was great to be there for WaterCity WrestlingCon. And then out comes this man, I'm just going to call him the gentleman because I didn't really get a chance to catch his name. But he comes out and he kind of reminds me of a cross between Baron Corbin and Damien Sandow. His wrestling is definitely very Damien Sandow-like, but he had the vest on like Baron Corbin would wear. The only difference is that he kept the vest on during his match, unlike Baron Corbin, who just takes it off when the match takes place. He came out basically just to berate and just put down Foley, and then Foley says, I think it's time for you to have a match right now, and it's against Justin Dredd. I cannot say any more good things about Justin Dredd than I probably already have. Justin is one of those guys who definitely is vastly underrated. He's one of those guys who does an excellent job in the ring, and it shows in this matchup. Now, normally when I do these matches, I kind of talk a little bit about, what goes on during the matchup, and I give a rating at the end. I'm not going to do the ratings. I'm just going to kind of take you, because this is not really like a WWE event. This is just an independent show that is in my state, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm not going to really, talk about, all the crazy moments in the matchup, but I will definitely talk about some of the highlights of these matches. This was a good first opening matchup. I loved the chemistry between the gentlemen and between Justin Dredd. Justin Dredd got to finish off the gentleman with a 450 splash, beautifully done, I might add, for the victory, and Justin Dredd is indeed the winner. After the match is over, the gentleman starts attacking. He starts attacking Justin Dredd until Mick Foley comes in, locks in the mandible claw, and basically throws him out of the ring. Then Foley and Justin Dredd, they get a chance to kind of chat a little bit. Foley actually invites a couple fans into the ring, I should say. And, they got to dance and jam out to the Dude Love deal. It was such a cool moment. And it definitely shows that Mick Foley cares about his fans. And that's the one thing that I cannot stress enough when it comes to Mick Foley. He is definitely one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And he's really very good with, fan interactions. I really love what they did with him. But yeah, I will also say this, that during this matchup, he was actually the special guest timekeeper, but I didn't really want to mention that because he really didn't do anything. That's the thing about it. It wasn't one of those things where he was, getting involved in the matchup or he was, he interfered or anything like that. No, he was just at ringside. He's a special guest timekeeper, but also I think he's at the point in his career where his body just cannot take that much physical punishment. So this was kind of one of those roles where it was like, I'm okay with it. He's out of harm's way. We don't have to worry about him having some kind of injury that could honestly maybe cripple him or paralyze him for all we know, because he's taken so much abuse throughout his career. So that was kind of one of those things where it's like, he's sitting at ringside, he's a timekeeper. I will take that. I will legitimately just take the fact that he did not do anything except ring the bell. I will take that. Next matchup on here was the $5,000 Battle Royal. So many different people were in this matchup. I can't even begin to tell you all of these people. Oh my gosh. I mean, one guy that we definitely I got a chance to meet was Levi, who was dressed up like an Amish guy, and he's carrying around this like milk cart. Oh my gosh, this guy is just absolutely awesome. And he's very strong too. It's just absolutely crazy. Coda Jacobs, who is one of those guys that a lot of people seem to be getting behind. He's almost like a Drew Gulak form in Wisconsin. We had Mighty Mouse involved in there. I know that that's not his real name, but we've known him that for a long time. He's just this, height. Let's just say that his height differs from his personality, and I'm okay with this. We had the previous winner, Brock Hall. There was Colin Brooks involved. Randy Wild were in this matchup. It was a really fun. It was a basic battle royal, which is totally fine with me, because some of these battle royals get hyped up so much, and it gets to be kind of really dumb at times. This was just a straightforward, getting everybody in the matchup. They're getting their spots in. It's great. The final three was the team of Randy and Wild, as well as Brock Hall. Brock gets eliminated by Randy and Wild, but then one of the members of Randy and Wild were actually eliminated because they were still stuck on the outside. So the other member of Randy and Wild picked up the victory. Bottom line is that Randy and Wild are the winner of the $5,000 battle royal, and the announcer kind of put it perfectly, is that this was a matchup where when one member of the team wins, the other person wins as well. So that's why it's kind of one of those things where Randy and Wild, when it is what exactly it was. One of them wins, so they both won. So it's probably going to be like a half check deal, where they're probably just going to cut it in half. One person's going to get the $2,500, and excuse me, same with the other one. I will also say this. One highlight of this matchup that was kind of funny was that Frank the Clown was also in this matchup, and he definitely got heat immediately, because he's basically talking about how he's a great entertainer and how he could be a great wrestler, and that he is a WWE Network superstar. And there were even people asking me, it's like, how is he a network superstar? What has he done? And I was thinking it was probably because of his appearances on Holy Foley. So, it was just one of those things where it's like, I love it. It's one of those things where it's like a cross between, you have something funny in a clown, and he's trying to get heat. It's kind of like Doink the Clown, but only, I would dare say, better. I really would, because I think that Frank does a great job of generating heat. He's just not exactly as big as, his character makes him think he is, but the fact that he believes that he is the greatest thing since sliced bread and butter, it makes me love that character that much more. And it was just really cool to see that he got into the matchup, and he was the first one gone. He literally probably could have pulled off what was his name? A Warlord record, where he gets in the ring, boom, done. I wouldn't go as far as like a Santino Marella record. It was not that fast, but it was kind of along the Warlord elimination style. Next matchup up here was the match between two veterans. We had Ben McCoy taking on Shane Douglas with Francine in his corner. So this matchup was one of the few times in the night. Well, I don't know if I would say few times in the night. I think that this matchup was full of a lot of questions and kind of head-scratching moments for me, because as it seemed like it was on paper, it looked like it was just going to be a regular wrestling matchup. Well, it didn't exactly start off that way. But before we get into that, I definitely want to talk about, Ben coming out. He's looking pretty good. And honestly, I was thinking that maybe he was going to be the face and that franchise Shane Douglas was going to be the heel. Boy, did that get shattered in a matter of 2 minutes. So Shane Douglas, he comes out with Francine. He's getting ready to do his intro. Ben takes the microphone, and he just says, that might have worked a long time ago, but you have to remember that this is my yard now, and we're not going to, and he didn't want any of it to be happening. So Ben just goes off and cuts this vicious heel promo about how Shane Douglas is just washed up. He's a has-been. He mentions the triple threat. He even mentions, Bam Bam Bigelow and Chris Candido. I'm trying to remember what the line was. I think the line was that the only misfortune here was that, oh gosh, I can't even do it justice. I don't think I can do it justice. He definitely got major heat with this triple threat reference. Then Shane Douglas started to attack Ben McCoy. This would go out into the fans, into the stands. They would just beat down on each other. Shane actually got a trash can and hit Ben McCoy with it. I honestly was kind of confused because I was thinking, is this a regular matchup? Is this a no DQ matchup? Later on we find out, no, it's just a regular matchup. I guess that they didn't exactly ring the bell until maybe when they finally got back into the ring. I don't know. It was confusing. It was a kind of a confusing start, but it was still fun. It was still fun to see Shane Douglas and Ben McCoy fight each other on the outside. They're interacting a bit with the fans, and it's just one of those things that really shows that they both do appreciate us as fans, and they're trying to give us their best. They really do. It was a pretty good. It was a pretty good matchup, to say the least. The ending was actually kind of a bit of a shock because Ben McCoy was getting set up by Shane Douglas. Shane calls in Francine, who has the kendo stick. She's about to whack basically Ben right in the melon, but Ben ducks, and Shane gets clunked in the head. Now, unfortunately, during this time, referee is down, so he doesn't see a thing. Ben McCoy covers Shane for the 1-2-3. Ben McCoy gets probably one of the biggest notches under his belt by beating a legend in this business in Shane Douglas. Shane would then beat down on Ben McCoy. Francine would get a couple of kendo shots in on Ben McCoy. Then Shane Douglas did a classic deal where he talked about the triple threat, where he talks about Bam Bam, he talks about Chris Candido, he talks about appreciating the fans that came out here to ACW WaterCity WrestlingCon. Definitely puts over Francine in a major way, and honestly, she definitely does deserve it. And it kind of ends with that. It was a good matchup. A little confusing to start, but all in all, I liked it. I thought it was a good match. Then, before we got into intermission, we had the triple threat matchup for the tag team titles, in which we had the Players Club taking on Famous Trash and Tag Team Move. So I love all six. All six of these guys definitely put on a really, really good matchup. I love the comedic deal. I love anything that Swoggle does. His brand of comedy is definitely his own. His brand of wrestling is definitely his own as well, and he definitely deserves every single bit of credit that he has earned. Colucci, I cannot speak more positively than I could ever speak more positively about him. I love his style. I love his way of thinking, and I love the fact that these two guys, Swoggle and Colucci, are branded as best friends, and they show pictures of the fact that they are best friends in real life. So it is going to suck to see who turns heel first, because not all tag teams can make it without something giving. That's the only thing I could say about this. I love the teaming of Jordy Lee and Joey Avalon. They are just great as heels. Jordy Lee and Joey Avalon very much complement each other. I will say this, that one of the highlights of that matchup was Joey Avalon doing a dive from the top rope onto the pool of guys that are underneath him. You can't say that this guy is not athletic, and especially after that move. It's just hard to even say that. I've definitely mentioned this before, and people have seen these in pictures. He and I look like we don't get along, but he's a really cool guy. I enjoy his heel work. I love the fact that he is definitely one of those guys who thrives on it and just loves every single bit of it. It's almost like it feeds him to just do more and be better. It's just really awesome. And also the team of the Players Club, Cat and Cash. These are, kind of like two guys I'm not really too familiar with, but they just enjoy, they just enjoy being a team, and they really are definitely going to be a team to look out for, especially after this matchup. Cat finishes off Joey Avalon with a power slam, pinning him. Players Club wins the tag team titles on this night. This was a shock for me. I was not expecting this at all, and oh my gosh, I mean, it was awesome. I was in shock by this. Nobody on our podcast even predicted this. I know I'm going to try to get the prediction show up sometime tonight. It was one of those matches that, it was really good, and it had a shocking finish. It worked. It was really good. I liked it. I will say that while the intermission was going on, you get the chance to talk to people here and there. I got the chance to talk to Frank the Clown. It was kind of funny because what happened during this was just one of the funniest things that I could have ever seen. So I'm going over there. I'm going to just, be like, goof around with Frank, just be like, hey man, sucks that you lost and blah, blah, blah. That went out the window as soon as I got to his table, because these three kids that literally were just tearing him a new one. And all I could do was I just moved on back. I just watched the chaos ensue, and I'm just kind of standing there next to Noel, and we're just kind of looking at each other. There was a couple of points where our jaws kind of dropped because these kids were just tearing into him, no problem. Finally, I get my chance to talk to Frank, and, it's kind of those things where it's like, dude, you've already suffered enough. Hey, man, great job out there. Stick my hand out to him. He goes to the handshake, and, of course, I do the whole hair slick back deal, and he just has this look of like, what? How dare you, sir? But then I followed up with, no, dude, you did great. Thank you for coming out. It's awesome. And, Frank is definitely one of those guys I've said. He's very entertaining, and I'm hoping that more success comes in his future. I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes next for him. They also mentioned something that would take place, ironically, on my birthday, August 3rd, is that they're going to be hosting, I guess it's going to be like a concert, but also a wrestling event. It's called Rock and Rumble. So they've already announced, the ACW is going to be taking a part of this. Al Dente's Way is going to be a part of this, as well as, I believe it's Fuel, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to double check on that, because I want to get the facts straight for this. If I'm plugging this, I need to make sure that I have the right, information, because I know Al Dente's Way is a part of that. I know that much, but I'm trying to remember what the hell it was here. Yep, Rock and Rumble. I just need to find all the info. Where did it go? I honestly thought that, I don't know, maybe I'm just gonna... Alright, so I'm actually playing the video from this, just so that I can kind of remember it. So somebody actually took a video of this. Look at, see, okay, so it's Rock and Rumble, which I love the name. I already love the name already. It's just really awesome. Featuring ACW, which like I said, I think it's going to be a combination of a wrestling event as well as a concert event, because like I said, it's not... Oh, it's... No, Adelita's Way. I'm sorry. I don't know why I keep saying Al Dente's Way, because it's so dumb. Oh, yep, it's Fuel. It is Fuel. That was a that was kind of one of those things that got a really good reaction out of there. But I will say this, that I actually do want to say that they actually pulled a swerve in this one because this was plus one more act. Oh, one more national act. That's wow. I actually forgot about that. I think they were supposed to announce it next week, but hold on. Here comes the big announcement. Yep, August 3rd at the Menominee Nation Arena, guys. Booker T is coming to Wisconsin. That is awesome. That was one of those things where I'm just like, there's more? Well, who could possibly, really fit in this equation? And as soon as I heard the, can you dig it? Oh my gosh, I lost it. It was awesome. All right, so we get into the second half of the show. It definitely picked up after this. So the next matchup on here was the One Last Ride for Dream Police as they took on Delirium in what was supposed to be a handicap match. This is the match that, okay, this was tough. Let me explain a few things that happened during this deal. So this is one of those deals where at first it's like, okay, the mistakes can happen. It's fine. We hear from the announcer that it's going to be a 6-man tag. The referee actually whispers over to him, no, it's a handicap match. No, it's a handicap match. And the announcer, corrects himself. That's a handicap match. I think at that point they kind of realized, well, there goes that. So out comes Delirium, out comes Dream Police. This is where they made the second mistake. So it turned out that they were going to do a 6-man tag, and they revealed who the partner was during this time. Because this was rough. This was one of those things where it's like, okay, I get it. Mistakes were made. But at the same time, as a wrestling fan, you gotta still have at least a little bit of suspense. Then again, let's face it, all the suspense was just delivered when we get to the main event. So they basically announced, who the partner was, even though everybody knew it was Big Cass. So Dream Police and Cass taking on the team of Delirium. This was still a pretty good matchup. I will say that I did like the hype package that was there for Dream Police. They kind of based it a little bit on the soundtrack that was playing in the background was the Endgame Avengers deal, which was awesome. Totally okay with that. I can approve of that. The match itself was good, but it did have its fair share of problems. And for me, it was just points where it might have been a Normie Smiley situation where perhaps, perhaps it was one of those things where, it looks worse than what it is. But there were just two spots in this matchup that were just really, really rough. Big Cass actually had Chase McCoy, and he gorilla pressed him to the outside. When he landed on his members, he also landed, and we heard a thud. So we were not sure if maybe he hit his head on the ground or something like that. It looked like he was fine, but all we heard when he got thrown out was, hits the person, thud. It was just one of those things where myself and Max, we got up and we were looking at each other like concerned, like, oh my gosh, is Chase okay? Is everybody okay? Did something happen? And then there was another point where I think it was Seth Gambino, if I'm not mistaken. He has one of the members of Delirium up. He goes for what was a superplex, or it could be a fisherman, or it could have been like a super fisherman buster. The landing was. There was another moment where I had my hand on my face, just in shock, because it looked so bad. It definitely looked like one of those moments where it's like, oh no, I think somebody might be hurt during this. But again, it could be another situation where it was like, it's like a Norman Smiley deal. It looks, it looks worse than what it is. If that's the case, spot on you guys for doing that. But it was just one of those moments where it's like, oh boy, are we witnessing somebody's career getting shortened, or are we witnessing somebody taking a nasty fall on this? But Dream Police reigned supreme in their final matchup thanks to Big Cass. I will say this, that I would have much rather seen Dream Police pick up the victory with the handicap deal. But I get it. They have Big Cass. He's promoted. He was going to be in action. It is what it is. It's just one of those things where it's like, I think it would have just been more meaningful if we would have had that moment of, Dream Police overcoming the odds and doing it, just the two of them. Again, I'm not going to complain about it. That's just my wrestling mind and how it works. All right, so next matchup here is the matchup that we had sponsored, and that was the triple threat matchup for the ACW WaterCity WrestlingCon. Peter Schwann's Mr. Pornstache defending against TW3 and Adam Grace. Guys, if you've not seen the matchup, you can definitely check it out on our Facebook fan page as well as on my Facebook fan page. No, not the fan page, my Facebook page. It's a fun matchup. It's really good. And it lives up to the hype, in my opinion. We've definitely got the chance to talk to all three of these guys after the matchup, and they were great. I think I remember TW3 actually coming up to me and saying, "Hey, how'd we do?" I said, "You guys did awesome. You guys did spectacular. It was great." And it's one of our favorite matches of the night. And to tell that to him and to Peter Schwann's, and to tell that to Schwann's. It was good. It was really good to do that, and just see them being so happy to hear that is one of those things that really does make wrestling fun. And I think that it makes it fun for them too, to know that the person that backed them up gave them 2 thumbs up. Says a lot. Match itself, like I said, was really good. Peter Schwann's Pornstache, he hit 2 6.5-star frog splashes, one on Adam Grace, one on TW3, picks up the victory, retains the title. Like I said, really good matchup. In my opinion, match of the night, but I think people definitely have one matchup that definitely does go above that, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. The next matchup was the Vampires Ball matchup between Gangrel and Nathan Gust, Raging Dead. So, this matchup was good. There was a bit of an issue that I had, was that, it's a Falls Count Anywhere matchup, and they only fought around the ring, which maybe that was to Gangrel's request of having that. I mean, I could understand that, but it was just one of those things where it's like, well, you're calling it a Falls Count Anywhere matchup. Why wouldn't you have some of these falls, around the arena? Why wouldn't you have it, in the crowd with the fans? Maybe get them involved in this, something like that. But again, I'm not nitpicking at this. I'm not going to just trash this. Like I said, it was a good match. It was fun. Nathan Gust near the end, he brought out his barbed wire baseball bat. He brought in Lucille, busted open Gangrel, and we also see a spot where they have these toy vampire teeth that they put down on, to put them down on the ground. Nathan Gust goes to the top. Gangrel catches them, throws them into the vampire teeth, hits the Impaler DDT for the victory. Gangrel picks up the victory. Nathan Gust is winless at he's winless at WaterCity WrestlingCon, and it's in his second Extreme Rules type of matchup. I am hoping that before we reach ACW WaterCity WrestlingCon 5, he gets a victory. But for right now, he put on a really good matchup with Gangrel. Like I said, just one of those things where it's just a small nitpick. Again, if you have a Falls Count Anywhere matchup, it makes more sense to have it go out through, a little more than just ringside. That's just me, though. So we get into the main event, which was Johnny Impact challenging the ACW Heavyweight Champion, Logan Lynch. This matchup got everybody excited. Everybody definitely enjoyed this matchup. They got invested into it. I will say this, that there were a couple fans that were nearby that kept on chanting for Pornstache. They were big fans of him. For me as a wrestling fan, this was one of those moments where I'm just like, no, we cannot have them sabotage this main event. You have Johnny Impact coming here to this event, to this show. He could be doing a lot of other things, but he decided to come to this show and wrestle for us. I wasn't going to allow that to happen. So I tried taking over, and eventually it worked. We got, people involved in the matchup. We got people booing Logan Lynch, except for, Charisma. She is a big Logan Lynch mark, so she was all just like, no, Logan's awesome, Logan's awesome. I'm just like, no, it's Impact, he's awesome. Really good matchup between these two. I think that this is honestly one of the best matches in Logan Lynch's career. And for him to take on a huge star like Johnny Impact definitely is going to be one of those things that's going to be good on his resume. We see Johnny Impact, doing a lot of high-flying moves. We see Logan Lynch try to, take out the aerial offense by wearing down the body of Johnny Impact, which is a great move. Referee got knocked down. Logan Lynch was looking to hit Johnny with the title. Johnny was able to counter. He hit the Starship Pain or End of the World, whatever he's calling it. It's one of those moves that it's just still always absolutely amazing how well he can hit that move. And he pins Logan Lynch and becomes the new champion, which was another huge shock for me and for a lot of people. We were not expecting, Johnny Impact to win. Honestly, I thought it was going to be just a one-and-done deal where it's like Logan Lynch is going to continue this momentum. He's going to continue this, path of destruction or path of disrespect where he just beats down on everybody. But no, he loses to Johnny Impact. And honestly, this is going to be one of those matches where we may just see the rubber match between Johnny Impact and Logan Lynch. You never know. It was an awesome match. It really was. It was the one matchup that made everybody just happy to be a fan. Everybody enjoyed it. Everybody had fun with it. That's what matters. And that's really all that matters, is that you have fun with this, you enjoy it, you just have every single bit of fun just enjoying this event. And that's what it was all about. Because I could, nitpick at some of the things that I didn't like about this, but all in all, this was just a fun show. It really was. It was one of those things where it took my mind off of like WWE related stuff and all the stupid things that they're doing, and focus more on the wrestling that's here, and remembering the fact that there is a brand here that is being represented very well by all the men and women who put their heart and soul into ACW, and they do a fantastic job of doing it. So I'm very proud to be a fan of ACW. I will say that one thing that was a major disappointment here was the fact that it seemed like during the intermission, people left. It was packed to start off, and then I guess at intermission, people were leaving. There were like a few rows that were already gone. And I was disappointed by that because they missed out on a great main event. They missed out on Impact and Logan Lynch tearing each other apart. It was an awesome matchup. So, you know what? It's their loss, but our gain as wrestling fans to go see those two just tear it down and just do a great job. For them to miss the triple threat matchup, that definitely was great. And of course, I've said this before, I'll say this again, Peter Schwanz is indeed Mr. Triple Threat. I even said to him after the show, I said, dude, you keep the name. I don't want any royalties, dude. You've earned that. I'm just one of those people that, just makes a slight observation. So it was just a fun show. Shout out to ACW and all the wrestlers there. You guys do an absolutely fantastic job. And I'm looking forward to seeing what next year's ACW WaterCity WrestlingCon brings. And I'm looking forward to what the fifth one will do. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think I want to go to the Rock and Rumble event because that looks like a lot of fun. Plus, it's got Booker T. What more do you need to say? So it's going to be cool. Fun event, fun matches. That's what matters. All right, so guys, I'm going to take a little quick commercial break, and when I come back, I'm actually going to be doing something very interesting because starting today, I am actually going to be going through a list of my favorite tag teams of all time, favorite women's wrestler of all time, favorite men wrestler of all time, as well as a countdown of my favorite matches throughout the 15 years that I have been a wrestling fan. And this all culminates at Summerslam in August, you guys. And August cannot come any sooner. We're going to have 15 special guests appearing on this show, you guys, all throughout this month. It is going to be absolutely awesome. It's going to be some familiar faces that you might remember. It might be some faces that you probably do not remember, but I'm guaranteeing that there's going to even be a little bit of freshness to it because we're going to try to bring in some fresh faces for this event. So definitely tune into that, you guys. But for right now, enjoy this little commercial break. I will be right back, and I'm going to get to the list of greatness. Soak it in, man. Hi, I'm NateFNGreat. You know what's really fun, you guys, is just spending some time creating wrestling moments, whether it's being in the crowd, cutting promos, or just really kind of beating each other up with a chair or a trash can. Well, let's just say that there's a safer way to doing that without using an actual chair or a trash can. Go over to Great Minds Revolution Incorporated. My buddy Kurt has actually created a very safe and fun way to be a wrestling fan without the necessary lawsuits of basically beating each other up with real stuff. He has an inflatable chair that is really fun to just whack around, and it can also double as a little floaty for a pool. He also has the inflatable trash can, which, you guys, is really awesome because let's say maybe you don't want to use it for wrestling matches. You could use it at your barbecue, your next big tailgate party, whatever you could think of. Great Minds Revolution, Inc. They do a great job on making wrestling fun again. Proud friends of the Game Changer podcast. You're listening to the Game Changer podcast here on Spreaker.com. Oh boy, the Avengers. Avengers Endgame, guys, seen it 3 times, cried 3 times. It is emotionally draining. I'm not even going to try and make a world record out of it. For those of you that are going to watch it as many times, probably as many times as the guy who lives here in Wisconsin did, I wish you the best of luck, but I also hope that you have an IV with you because I guarantee you that your fluids are not going to keep up with the emotions that you will continue to see. All right, so like I said, this now is going to be talking about my 15 favorites of all time. So let's actually start off with the tag team. And starting off on the tag team part of it is Harper and Rowan. Now, I want to preface this on saying this, you guys, that this is not going to be a typical list. So a lot of these teams from 14 all the way to 6 are going to be, wrestlers that I've enjoyed, as well as just, people that have definitely stood out to me. So once I reach the top 5, you will definitely see a little bit more of particularness to it. But for right now, this is just, random people here. There's no order in this. There's nothing really crazy about it. It's just people that I've really enjoyed. And like I said, starting off with the tag teams, we have Harper and Rowan. Now, I enjoy these 2 guys as a team. They do an absolutely fantastic job. Luke Harper is definitely a huge single star that really deserves to be featured a lot more on TV. Rowan is definitely a really good supporter as a tag team. When these 2 come together, they just really create great matches. I mean, case in point, their 2 out of 3 falls match that they had with the Usos, I believe it was Battleground, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember they had a matchup with the Usos at Money in the Bank. I think the one after was indeed Battleground, if I am not mistaken. I did not even mind the gimmick change where they tried something different with Harper and Rowan. They came out as the Bludgeon Brothers. I was fine with that. I wasn't going to be one of those people that was going to just be like, oh, this is stupid. This does not have a right to be here and blah, 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 blah. No. I was giving it a chance. I thought, you know what? It's different. We still see these guys as a team. Let's see what happens. And to me, I was still enjoying them. I liked it. So the fact that, Harper and Rowan have definitely been vastly underutilized as a tag team, gosh, it blows my mind. They definitely deserve a lot more than what they're getting. Next up here will be for the women. And as far as women goes, I definitely will have to put on here one of the recent women that I've definitely enjoyed is Francine. So with Francine, it is one of those situations where, yes, I've seen her work in ECW. I've definitely gotten the chance to meet her. She's a genuine sweetheart. I love how when she turns heel, it gets people talking. When she fights, it gets people talking. She's one of those women who definitely is the epitome of extreme, and she definitely earned that moniker of Queen of Extreme. So that is one of the reasons why I had to put her on this list, because she is definitely one of the women who definitely set a huge path for the women and definitely helped them say, hey, girls can take vicious bumps too. So finally, guys, we go into the men's, and I started off pretty simple with Marty the Moth. Marty the Moth, I have definitely enjoyed his work in Lucha Underground. He just plays this creepy bastard gimmick very well, but he wrestles just as good, if not 100% better than his gimmick. Why WWE has not called him up is beyond me. Why they even let him go is beyond me. He's definitely one of those guys who just knows what he's doing in the ring. He knows how to create a great character. He is just absolutely vastly underrated, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds for Mr. Marty the Moth. Alright, so now we get into the fun part. Let's talk about 15 years, 15 of my favorite matches in all the 15 years. And I decided to do this by year. So going all the way back to 2004 and 4. I almost said 14. I was like, no, that is wrong. My math would have been wrong. You had every right to make fun of me if I were to screw that up. But I caught myself, thankfully. So going all the way back to 2004. What matchup in the mind of young NateFNGreat stood out as one of my favorites? Well, to be honest, it was a matchup that might not surprise many of you, but it might surprise a few of you. The matchup I chose on here was the matchup that happened on Monday Night Raw. I believe it was in Cameron, North Carolina, if I am not mistaken. It was the match between Lita and Trish Stratus for the Women's Championship. Not the Raw Women's Championship, not the SmackDown Women's Championship, but for just the Women's Championship. Guys, this was a great matchup, but with every great matchup, there comes a great build-up. And the build-up here was just absolutely... It's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. So, let's talk about the build-up for this. So, basically, Trish Stratus, earlier in the year, she turned heel on Chris Jericho. A lot of people know that. With myself and Mr. Fretz, we definitely talked about that during the WrestleMania 20 deal. We also kind of mentioned a little bit of the... what was it? I didn't get a chance to talk about Backlash 2004, but I think I'm going to actually have that as a Patreon exclusive because it's an event that's definitely worth talking about. So basically, Trish has been a heel for quite a while. Lita is still like this generic babyface for kind of a while. She did have a good matchup with Victoria at Backlash that year, ironically enough. And a couple months later, Trish pins Lita in a fatal four-way matchup to become the Women's Championship. So the seeds are kind of being, planted there for something bigger going on. things definitely took a different turn. So, during this whole time, Lita was, kind of getting happy because of the fact that she was, getting along with her boyfriend Matt, and Matt actually posed the question to her, and then we get into a deal where Kane gets involved, and this is where it gets kind of, just gets really, really uncomfortable, because if you thought the Katie Vick deal was something, you definitely need to go back to 2004 and witness something that, you know what, I won't even recommend it. It's one of those things where I will tell you basically what happened. So they basically insinuate that Kane is just stalking Lita, and she basically watches as, as Kane is just, destroying everybody, and he's also just, showing that he's kind of favoring Lita a lot, to a point where he injures Matt Hardy, and he actually ends up getting Lita to sleep with him just so that he lays off Matt Hardy. Well, obviously that doesn't end up happening, because at Vengeance and at SummerSlam, they end up having a couple of matches. Vengeance was a no DQ matchup. The match at SummerSlam was a Till Death Do Us Part matchup where Lita would marry the winner, which turned out to be Kane. And we had that very interesting wedding between Lita and Kane. But during this time, Lita is revealing the fact that she's pregnant. And we later find out that the baby is Kane's. So while Lita is going through the phases of pregnancy, here comes Trish. Trish comes into the fray and is just harassing Lita. She is literally trying, probably getting to the point where Lita just cries. And Lita just keeps giving her this look of almost death, just right into Trish's face, and Trish thinks like, oh, I'm trying to be the good friend. I'm trying to give, helpful advice. I threw a little baby shower, which was just a way to just humiliate Lita. And I will say this, that one of the things that was kind of interesting was there was a backstage deal where, Trish is just basically, harassing Lita again. She's basically almost even throwing a spot like, oh, well, she's throwing like a little nugget, make it seem like Lita's a slut. And Lita has this moment where she snaps. She doesn't get physical. She just, yells at Trish, basically just saying, as soon as I have this baby, I swear to God, I'm going to. And Trish's like, well, why don't you hit me now? Oh, that's right, you're pregnant. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, this is a cruel way to progress the storyline, but it's also one of those situations where it's going to make the fights between Trish and Lita that much better. So, fast forward a little bit more. Unfortunately, Lita loses the baby, and all you have to do is say one name, and that is Snitsky. The less we talk about that, the better. Lita is also trying to, support Kane in his fight against Snitsky, but Snitsky just almost basically kills Kane at Taboo Tuesday. That was insane. Okay, no, I'm done talking about Snitsky. Snitsky's out of the equation. I'm not even going to mention anything more. Although I will say one other thing. Snitsky pumps a baby doll. Okay, we're done. So, after a few weeks of, I guess you could say training and finally getting medically cleared by doctors, Eric Bischoff schedules a match for Survivor Series, and that was Trish versus Lita for the Women's Championship. The build-up for this was another very well-done deal. So, we build this up, and Trish basically labels Lita as the walking kiss of death, and even makes a package video where, it brings up, Esarios, because that's where Lita kind of came onto the scene, brought up the Hardy Boys, brought up Kane, brought up Dark Angel, for those of you that remember that TV series. I sure as hell did not. Anyway, that being said, then Trish has one of those lines that just strikes a nerve, because she talks about, beating Lita, and she says, come Survivor Series, you're going to lose to me just like you lost your baby. And that sets off Lita. Fast forward to Survivor Series. We see Trish and Lita, they're ready to lock up. Lita, she doesn't give two F's about anything. She gets into the ring and just goes into beating up Trish Stratus. Beating her up in the ring, beating her up at ringside, even to the point where she gets a steel chair and seemingly bashes Trish's head into the ground. And then we see Trish Stratus getting picked up by Lita. She grabs Trish, just throws her face into the mat, chokes her out. Well, a little bit. It's kind of one of those moments where it's just amazing. You just see Trish just, she's got her bodies wrapped around Lita, almost like an anaconda. She's got the sleeper hold locked in. She's just screaming at Lita, and Trish is just screaming in pain. And the next night, we see Lita, defeat Molly Holly in her, I guess you could say, return match on Raw. Trish comes out. She's got like a comedic face mask where it's covering her nose. She basically talks about how she's kind of humiliated. It's a really convincing face mask. I think it's like a prelude to what we got with the Cody Rhodes face mask later on in the years. But basically it was one of those situations where it seemed like Lita was doing what she thought was right, and that was taking away the one thing that Trish cares about more than anything, and that was indeed, her looks. And it was really smart. She's just kind of standing there, just kind of smiling. She's making it like a sympathetic, oh, I'm sorry deal. It's awesome. It was awesome. I really liked how this kind of turned out. Now, of course, we fast forward a few weeks later. Acting general manager at the time, Chris Jericho, slates the main event. That's going to be Trish versus Lita for the Women's Championship in Lita's hometown. So, this is where we get a proper matchup. Lita got her revenge at Survivor Series by taking away Trish's looks. Now, she wants to move on to phase 2, which is take away Trish's title. This matchup is indeed one of my favorite matchups because these two tell the story about how they both want the Women's Championship. We see everything these women have just throwing at each other. There's even a point in the matchup. This was one of those things, it's still such a scary spot to me. Lita does a suicide dive to Trish on the outside, and unfortunately, Lita lands on the floor, and it looks like she kind of scorpions herself. It is one of those moments where it's like, oh God, oh no. Because Lita had neck surgery a few years ago. So it was one of those situations where we're like, oh no, oh God, did she maybe break her neck again? So I was one of those many people that was like, oh geez, is she okay? That was the main thing going through my head. It's like, is she okay? Is she alive? Thankfully, it looked like she was doing okay. Matchup continues. Trish is able to, take off her mask. She uses it as a weapon one time, and then she basically just shows, oh yeah, my face is fine. For at least this matchup. These two women just lay it all on the line with each other. Trish tries to go for a chick kick. Lita's able to hit a reverse twist of fate on her. And then Lita hits a beautiful moonsault on Trish for the 1, 2, 3. Lita has won the Women's Championship on Raw in one of the first few times that you see the women main event that show. It was an absolutely great matchup between these two women. Now, some people might say, well, this must be like the pinnacle, right? Well, I mean, they still continued feuding on and off for like the next couple years until Lita and Trish retired that year. But this was rough because I would have loved for that to have been the finish of the rivalry, especially as soon as you find out what happens next. They have a rematch at the New Year's Revolution event, and And it was an event that, unfortunately, the first two matches, we see somebody getting injured. The tag team title matchup started off with Eugene and Regal taking on Christian and Tomko. And Eugene actually hurt his leg coming down from a drop kick. I think it was I think he tore something in his knee, if I'm not mistaken. And the next thing that happened was that Lita, she injured herself as well. I think she wrecked her ACL, if I'm not mistaken, during that matchup. And I think it was supposed to be a matchup that eventually led to a huge main event, a huge match at Mania, if I'm not mistaken. Because you had to believe that had to be it. There was no way that it was going to be Trish versus Christy Hemme. I believe that was supposed to be Trish and Lita at WrestleMania. But Trish regained the title, and it was a bit of a letdown. But a few years later, we actually do see kind of like the big culmination between Trish and Lita. They battle against each other in what was another really good matchup, and the roles are reversed, where Lita is the heel and Trish is the face. It's kind of surreal and kind of cool at the same time. So, yeah, the matchup on Raw featuring Trish and Lita, definitely check that out, you guys. It's the first of 15 matches that you will definitely want to listen in to and even rewatch that. It happened in, I want to say, December of 2004, if I'm not mistaken. I'm actually going to try to make sure that I can get the exact dates for these matches, because I really do want you guys to go back and check them out. So it's in December of 2004, Monday Night Raw. Chris Jericho is the guest row manager. All you have to do is just go all the way to the end, and you will see the main event. One thing I will say about this, though, is that they really did make this thing come full circle. Before the matchup on Raw, Lita and Trish have like a backstage segment where Trish, and Lita, they have a stare down, and then Trish just kind of chuckles, and she's like, oh, look who it is, the walking kiss of death. Tell me something, whose career are you planning on ending tonight? And Lita just smirks and just says, yours. She grabs Trish and kisses her. It was one of those moments where it's like, oh my God, is that like a foreshadowing? Is that like a sign of things to come? Apparently it was. The walking kiss of death gimmick worked, because she won the women's title later on that night. It worked. I kind of do want that name to be passed on throughout generations, because that's kind of cool. But who knows? We'll wait and see. So, yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Pro Talk Wrestling. You guys definitely check out us on the Game Changer Network fan page. Be sure to check us out here on Spreaker.com, as well as on iHeartRadio, Spotify. Of course, check us out on YouTube and SoundCloud. Guys, also be sure to give me a follow on Twitter at RealFNGame. And be sure to like and talk to all the great people that are a part of the Game Changing Network. So, with that being said, I'm going to head out. Thank you so much for tuning into this edition of the Game Changer. You guys continue to listen on as I continue to build up to to the final few episodes going into August. It's going to be a can't miss event, you guys. So, have a good one. I'll see you real soon.